Thank you, Chairman. There's a vote in the chamber, but I'll stay here. It's all right, Chairman. And thank you for informing me. Just a couple of questions. Maybe I'll get them through very, very quickly. I'm just would like to refer to a report to the HAA. This is one on June the 3rd, I think, 2011, by Deloitte in response to a request from Mr. Tom Boland. You'd be familiar with that report, Mr. Boland, yeah?
You may already have had that discussion.
Oh, have you?
I'm not familiar with the report, as I was saying earlier, but I'm accepting that the report was done.
It was a response to a request from you?
That's as I understand it, yes. And
you're not familiar with it?
No. Well, what I'm saying is, as I sit here this morning, I don't recall it, but it's 4 years ago.
Okay. If I'm repeating something that's come already, that's fine. This was a report by Deloitte.
The report, as I understand it, that Deputy MacDonald was referring to earlier, was a report from Waterford Institute of Technology to the HEA, drawing on a report from Deloitte's. But okay. Deputy, I'm sorry, I'm somewhat at a disadvantage because I just don't have the detail in front of me. But it is the same report, as I see it, that Deputy MacDonald was referring to.
Okay. If you can't answer that question, maybe someone from Waterford could answer it. This was Deloitte's were commissioned to do this report. Is that correct?
Yes.
I believe that report is a summary of the Deloitte report.
That's a summary of the Deloitte report. It's not the Deloitte report.
Why were Deloitte chosen?
Why were Deloitte chosen?
They were the internal auditors.
They were the internal auditors.
Does that in any way make them conflicted? Well, surely they would be the last people who should be chosen.
Well, not too sure why.
Because they've got obviously an interest. They're getting fees presumably elsewhere from WIT.
Yes, but they would also be. They also would actually have the appropriate information to carry out the.
Of course, but someone external could get that information.
Yes, I have to say it is a possibility. I don't know.
What sort of fees? What sort of fees would Deloitte earning at the time?
Internal audit fees,
yeah.
32,000.
What was the cost of this report?
The cost of that, there was 2 reports. They were 90,000 in total.
So there was 2 reports. The cost was 90,000.
90,000 in fees, yeah. I mean, it just strikes me. I've got a report here, which maybe Deputy MacDonald's already produced. It's a summary, which is headed "Expenditure incurred by the Office of the President," which you'll be familiar with. It just strikes me that Deloitte would, because they were not independent, that this should be given to somebody else.
Say I wasn't there at the time, so I can't tell you.
Yeah. What would your view be? Would you do the same now? Would you take an internal auditor to make a report on an internal matters, which they'd already obviously been involved?
Possibly not. No.
No, I don't think you would. And it strikes me that that's an unusual way to operate. It certainly wouldn't be acceptable now. Just to get back to that for the moment, was it in the report from Deloitte, despite the fact that maybe they're the wrong people to do it, was there any suggestion that this is on the President's expenditure, was there any suggestion that there was any expenditure incurred in the President's office that was for the purposes other than that of the Institute?
Well, I suppose the core issue was that the amount of items that went through the President's particular account, there seemed to be a huge range of items that went through the President's account. It's the base of a legal issue at the moment, but we as an institute, from what I can see from reading the data around it, we separated out those items which were items for the Institute, which maybe should have been in another account, items which were for duties carried out as the President under his own account, and then a smaller number of items which were items which would appear to be somewhat, I have to use the word, excuse me, because I'm not, okay, what we did an examination of the expenses, which also highlighted expenses that were not necessarily for Institute business purposes, and others for which it was deemed there may have been personal benefit. And it is only on these latter categories that the actions which initiated by the Institute was grounded, i.e. the Institute sought repayment for those items.
Right. And is that on the back of the Deloitte report?
That's on the back. Was it totally on the back? Yes, the back of the Deloitte report, yes.
So is there a suggestion that that any of the expenditure incurred in the President's office was for purposes that were, that were not for the Institute itself?
There are a number of items, yes.
Could you tell us what they are?
No. I'm sorry, but it's part of an ongoing discussion with the former President, which we sought clarification. So I think, in fairness to the President, that we should actually continue with that ongoing discussion.
Okay.
So just to clarify, out of all of the items, there are a number of items which are open to query, to which there is a request to the President to either clarify or reimburse the Institute for those items. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, a report which I'm reading here, which is WIT making a report to HEA, in effect, which is a summary of the Deloitte report, which I'm sure is a document you've seen anyway.
Yes.
It says, actually, overall controls at the Institute were sound, as evidenced by annual CNAG management letters and internal audit reports. Would you be in agreement with that?
That's correct, yeah. Also, Mr. Quigley said the same thing.
Yeah, and it goes on to say that at no stage has Deloitte or the governing body suggested that any expenditure incurred in the President's office was for purposes other than that of the Institute.
So I'm not...
But you don't agree with that?
No, what I said was there are a number of items which were identified as possibly for the benefit of the President, and there was a request to pay those items.
Yeah, here it says the opposite.
But there's a second Deloitte report, Deputy.
Yeah.
So there was two Deloitte reports, and the second Deloitte report went into more detail and was forwarded to the PAC on the 12th of February 2013. So there are two Deloitte reports, and the action that Professor Donnelly is discussing arises from a conflation of the issues in the two Deloitte reports.
You're saying, sorry, and I am rather, I don't know much about this, I'm just asking a few questions, that's why I'm doing it. Are you saying that they're in conflict with each other then on that issue? The two Deloitte reports?
On a combination of the two Deloitte reports, there are a number of matters which also were identified in the CNAG's reports, which there are question marks over the expenditure, and which WIT has initiated action with the former President about those.
Yeah, but you're not quite answering my question. You're saying that the second Deloitte report...
I haven't got the two reports.
Okay, well, I've got this summary here.
You have the extract.
I've got this summary here. It is important. It's a very important point.
Yeah, but WIT took a subsequent overview of all the expenses after the two reports, which it got. It then did its own analysis and came to its own conclusions, building on the two reports. So we'd have to go and get the two reports and write back to you. But the overall conclusion by WIT, not in Professor Donnelly's time as President, was having got the two Deloitte reports, it took its own analysis, it completed that analysis, having regard to the CNAG's work as well, and has sought reimbursement and has initiated action in relation to reimbursement on, or correspondence between solicitors, it might not be action, to have a dialogue about some of that expenditure being clarified or refunded, and that's where the issue is now.
How much did Deloitte get for these two reports?
We don't have the information here, but we provided it, I think, to the committee previously, and we can certainly, together with WIT and the HA, provide it again.
I mean, have you no idea?
Oh.
I think Ms. Sheridan gave it.
You can answer the question, Ms. Sheridan, if you wish.
98,000.
Sorry?
98,000.
For the two reports?
Yes.
Okay, it's about 100,000, yeah, in fees.
Sorry?
About 100,000.
Yeah.
I think that's all, Chairman. Thank you. Fine.